Hi, I'm Sterling Edwards. Let's spend about 5 minutes talking about charging color. Now, a lot of times as a watercolor artist, we want to take advantage of the quality of the paint, the characteristic of watercolor. Watercolor, quite often, if you have a wet shape, you can just drop color into it and watch it kind of bleed out and grow on its own with very little brush work. That's one of the beauties of watercolor. I was originally trained as an oil painter, and of course, as an oil painter, I had to take each individual color and dab it on and blend it in and so forth. Watercolor does half the work for me, probably 80% of the work for me. Because I can take a wet shape, and while that shape is still wet, just pop a few colors into it and watch the whole painting take on a very exciting look. Just to give you an example, I have a piece of 140-pound watercolor paper, and let's see if we can't put a tree in here. I'm using a color called Still to Grain Brown. You could use any color, but I'm using a brown just since we're doing a tree. So here I'm doing this little suggestion of a tree. Nothing real fancy, just a little doodle. Now, the shape says tree and the color basically says tree, but let's make that color a little bit better. Let's take some violet, and while that shape is still wet, I'm using the same brush, and I'm just dropping, literally just dropping in some violet, not brushing the two together. If I brush the two together, they become one color. By just dropping it in like this, you get these very neat little color nuances, which make a painting look very interesting. Here we're going to put in some darker violet in a few places. Now look how gnarly that tree starts looking. Now let's put another color while it's still wet, and that's the key. As long as it's wet, we can keep doing this. In fact, let's take another brush. Let's take a round brush. This is number 12 round. Let's drop some blue into it. And again, don't brush the two together. Just drop it in, just in a few places. Watch it bleed. Watch it blend on its own. And you get a very nice transitional color variety going from the violet into the brown into the blue. And I'll do one more color just to really exemplify what this can do. Let's take some orange. This is a orange lake. Very, very beautiful orange. See, as long as that's wet, I can just keep doing this. And look how exciting that tree looks now. Before it was just a brown shape. Now I've got this very gnarly textured tree by just dropping a few colors on that wet shape. It's a wonderful technique. The biggest problem I have with charging color is I forget to do it. So I have to remind myself when I've got a wet shape, this is my opportunity to charge the color by just dropping something else into it while it's still wet. After it dries, you can still put more color on it, but that's a whole different process. Then we're talking about color glazing. Glazing is putting a color over an existing dried color. Charging, you'll find, gets your painting, I think, much more excitement. So next time you're working on a piece, you got a nice wet shape. While it's still wet, drop a few colors into it. Watch watercolor do its thing. Just a friendly tip to help you out.